And it's straight to the papers. Laurent is joining us here on set. We're going to start, in fact, in India for Laurent's first story. The government's decision to rename a cricket stadium. This has been making real waves in the press there.
Well, that's right, Stuart. And it's not just any stadium, but it's actually the world's biggest cricket stadium, which the Financial Times tells us was renamed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi after himself. It's now called the Narendra Modi Stadium. The move has ruffled some feathers in India, as noted by Indian daily The Deccan Chronicle, with critics, including members of the opposition, accusing Modi of insulting the memory of Sardar Patel, who was the first Prime Minister of India and after whom the stadium was named before it was changed. Now, facing this growing backlash, the Indian government decided to hit back by saying it only changed the name of the stadium, but not of the sporting complex, which is still named after Patel.
It's a little sneaky, isn't it? The story does come, doesn't it, though, Lauren, as Modi's facing growing criticism over his perceived authoritarian style of governing. Of course, we had those recent farmers' protests there.
That's right, and it's something the Times of India actually tackles in an editorial today called Wounded Vanity, in which the author denounces the government's repeated attempts to criminalize any form of protest or dissent. And it takes the recent example of a 22-year-old climate activist who was just released on bail after spending 10 days in jail over vague accusations of participating in an international conspiracy with Greta Thunberg after she developed an online toolkit to support striking Indian farmers. The article argues that by trying to criminalize and to crack down on any form of criticism or disagreement, the government is actually harming its own moral authority here.
Let's head to the Philippines for this next story. Newspapers there have been reacting to the latest government strategy to acquire much-needed COVID-19 vaccines.
Well, it's fair to say the deal has not been very well received in the Philippines and in the medical community there. A deal which Courrier International describes as trading nurses for vaccines. The Filipino government basically offered to send thousands of registered nurses to work in the UK and Germany in exchange for some 600,000 doses of vaccines, which the country badly needs as it's fallen behind and hasn't started its vaccination drive yet. The idea isn't, of course, to send slave laborers to Europe, but rather to remove or to change a cap that the Philippines has on how many workers can go work abroad every year. However, the plan seems to have backfired, and according to the Philippine Daily Inquirer, lawmakers have slammed the idea, calling it an outrage on Filipino migrant workers and accusing the government of using people as bargaining chips. Now, not only is this causing unrest and criticism in the Philippines, but apparently the UK has already rejected the offer, and Germany doesn't look likely to accept. So it really looks like a missed plan right there.
Dead in the water by the sound of it. Now, finally, love this story that Lauren told us about earlier, so it's worth doing again. Specifically, Texas, we're talking about here. Some internet users have been sharing interesting theories. This is about the massive snowstorm that recently hit the state, isn't it?
Well, interesting theories indeed, Stuart. And if you thought the energy capital of the world facing a massive power blackout during a snowstorm was a little bit ironic, wait until you hear about this new conspiracy theory, courtesy here of the New York Post. The snow in Texas is actually fake.
Of course it is.
Of course. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but for the past few days, videos of people, of Texans trying to melt snowballs with their lighters have been going viral on TikTok and other platforms. Well, the snow doesn't appear to drip when they do so. Some people seem convinced that it's all a government plot to do what exactly, we don't know, or maybe that Bill Gates is involved somehow. Well, it all sounds a bit silly, but the idea is actually getting quite a bit of traction, enough that a news outlet such as Reuters actually published an article to fact-check and debunk this fake snow theory.
Right.
Now let's get into the science a little bit. The article says the reason why the snow doesn't appear to drip or melt when you light it is because it's porous, meaning it will absorb immediately the water, so it doesn't drip drip from the snowball. And the article also points out that the burn marks that you will see on a snowball if you light it with a lighter are in fact due to the chemicals in the lighter and nothing to do with the snowball itself. You can verify that by using a lighter on a window or a mirror, for example. And Reuters also points out it's not the first time that there's a conspiracy theory about fake snow. And as recently as 2014, when Atlanta was hit by a small snowstorm, similar accusations had already surfaced.
That is an incredible story. And you know what? When Lauren Bairstoker does the press review, you don't just get a press review, you get a science lesson in there as well. Thank you very much, Lauren Bairstoker.
I certainly learned something.
Exactly, yeah. You've been looking it up all morning to understand it. Thanks a lot, Lauren Bairstoker.
Thank you, Stuart.
On France 24. In the next half hour today, 10 years on from the Arab Spring, we look at some of the delights of a world inspired by revolution. That's the world of art and culture. It's our special focus report coming up for you in the next half hour.